I'm Max Lopez. This is the Blue Wave. We're going to be looking at some statistics from 538 that show Kamala Harris and Donald Trump's favorability and why Donald Trump's favorability or lack thereof may be a very serious political liability for him heading into this November election, and how Kamala Harris still has inroads to make with the American people and Donald Trump doesn't. But before we do that, please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with someone who's into politics. It helps YouTube take my channel more seriously and share the word to more and more people. So let's go over here to 538. Do Americans have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of Kamala Harris? You'll look at here at February 21st, 2021, Americans had a 48.4% favorable rating and a 41.1% unfavorable rating of Kamala Harris. Now, look here at what happens in August when but the Biden-Harris administration withdrew from Afghanistan, our longest war, and there was some American service members who unfortunately died as a result of that withdrawal. And this goes in line with generally poll numbers of the Biden administration, in that the unfavorable view started around then. August, when the withdrawal happened, Americans had a majority unfavorable view of Kamala Harris, and that holds steady all throughout 2022, all throughout 2023. Very little movement on that. But look what happens here. July of 2024, when Joe Biden made the historic decision to step down from the top of the ticket, and Kamala Harris quite literally overnight took over the head of the Democratic ticket and started campaigning and getting her face and her political platform and her life out there to be seen by the American people. And what happens is Kamala Harris goes from at the start of the month, a 36.4% favorable rating to now being October 2nd, 2024, is back to being a majority favorable view by people and voters in the United States of America. Hold a favorable view of Kamala Harris as of October 2nd. Now, what does this show here? What this shows is that the more people have seen of Harris, the more that she's gone out and done stump speeches and done campaign events and has participated in a debate and has done these national interviews. People are inspired by her. People are excited by her message. People are tuning in to see what she's all about. People are curious. People are interested in what Kamala Harris has to offer the American people in a way that Donald Trump just does not he does not excite the American populace in the same way, because he is a much, much more known commodity to the American people than he was when he won in 2016, for sure, but much, much less of a known commodity, or more of a known commodity, than Kamala Harris today. So if you look at what happened in 2016, Clinton had this disadvantage where people viewed her as being the lifelong politician, and people were curious about what Trump, being the outsider, could bring. But now that's all flipped on its head, as we'll look at here when we check out Donald Trump's favorability. So when we look at Trump's favorability, you go back here to January 31st, 2021, Trump had nearly a 60% unfavorable view in this country. And we know that that was at its peak right after the disastrous transfer of power that happened on January 6th. And what we see here is a much more stagnant kind of favorable versus unfavorable view of Donald Trump. 53% in July in July of 2021 had an unfavorable view of him. We go to March of 2022, 53%, 54%, 2023, 55%, November 2023, 52%. This pretty much holds strong where 40 to 42 to 43% of the country has a favorable view of Trump, and 52% has a unfavorable view of him. This lack of an uptick in Trump's favorability as we get closer and closer to the election is a serious problem for him. You see a slight uptick, for instance, from, let's go back here to April, right? When that was April last year. Go here to April of 2024, and Trump had about a 42% favorable rating. It's gone up slightly to 43% today, but 52.6% of the country has an unfavorable view of Donald Trump as of October. Let's see, where's the data cut off here? As of October 4th. And that holds steady all throughout Biden's administration. Now, what does this mean for the former president? It means that he's running out of places to go and get new voters, because everybody in America at this point, unless you're living under a rock, and even people who are living under rocks, could do a hodgepodge impersonation of Donald Trump because of how much we've been blasted with him, his image, his talking points, his political grievances, over and over and over and over again, really ever since he won the election in 2016. He is all tapped out, right? And this is basically why I think his message has been so laser focused on turning out the voters and support that he has. He's not really focused on building a bigger coalition and trying to attract people into the Republican coalition, because they know there's, this data clearly shows there's not many places that Trump can go. And, this is going to be a turnout election. This is not a persuasion election. This is where Harris and Trump are both looking to get out the support that is already there as much as possible. But with Harris, her electoral path is wider than Trump's, because the coalition of voters that the Democratic Party is attracting and the message that the Democratic Party has been getting out to the American people is much more attractive, and it leads to a much more flexible path to an electoral victory, where Donald Trump, he is much more limited in his paths to victory. And it really kind of just shows a lack of political strategy and political savvy that the right has in this election, previous elections as well. And it basically comes down to them throwing that all away because of the idea that Trump can still win and that Trump can still lead. And they put all their eggs in the Trump basket, and ultimately it might not work out, because Trump has shown he's kind of he's shoehorned himself into a certain avenue to victory, and it's in turning out his rural support, young men voters, middle-aged men, to vote him back into office. But Harris has a much more flexible pathway, and it's because Americans haven't been blasted and beat over the head with her image and with her message. And you wonder how many more elections does MAGA have to lose before they look at some of these demographics and how voters are resonating with the different political messages that the Republicans are putting out there. How many more elections do they have to lose until they realize that 2016 might have been more of a fluke more than anything else, right? It's not that people are deeply resonating with MAGA's message or MAGA's view for our country. It's that 2016 might have been a fluke anomaly of an election where Hillary Clinton, is much more about Hillary Clinton's unpopularity and a dismal campaign that was run by the DNC by shutting out Bernie Sanders and shutting out progressive voters, giving them the finger to progressive voters in 2016. It might, Trump's rise to being the president might have much more to do with that than any political savvy that Trump himself has. And let's look at the elections that have happened since 2016. 2018, Republicans lose the House of Representatives. Nancy Pelosi takes the gavel as Speaker of the House. 2020, Donald Trump loses re-election in an embarrassing loss as the incumbent president, largely based on his lack of leadership when the country needed it most. 2022, the Republicans are predicting a red wave based on Americans' view of the withdrawal from Afghanistan and inflation being at its highest point since 1982. And there was lots of things that were going very well for the Republicans, or should have been, in 2022, leading to a massive majority in the House. And what we saw was that didn't come to fruition. The Republicans, in fact, gained a very slim majority in the House of Representatives that has led them to be unable to accomplish much of their political agenda because of the divisiveness that exists even within different factions of the GOP. Now, let's fast forward to this election coming up in a month. If the Republicans and MAGA don't win it here, what does Trump's political legacy have to show for? Losing the House in 18, losing the White House in 20, not gaining a very strong majority in 2022 when all signs pointed to that's exactly what should have happened. 2024, if Trump doesn't win it, the Republicans really have to be looking at Donald Trump's unfavorability and the unfavorability of other things such as Project 2025 and how steadfast that unfavorability is and how unchanging and unmoved it is. The American people have made their opinion known about Donald Trump. Okay, you're either with them, you're either part of that 35 to 40 to 42, 43% of the country that resonates with his message and is with him, or you fall in that bucket of the rest of people who don't want anything to do with Donald Trump and his vision for this country. The number of people who are out there who are still have yet to make their minds up about Donald Trump, where have you been? If you are out there trying to make your minds up about Donald Trump, where have you been in American politics in the last 9 years? I'm sure there are still people out there, but the question is, do they exist in a high enough of a number that can push Trump over the edge when the GOP has been bleeding support based on a bunch of other issues, right? Roe v. Wade. Is the support that the GOP has bled from the Dobbs decision, is that going to be overcome by picking up voters in some other area, right? I don't personally see it. I'm not sure what it is that the Republican Party is offering the American people that would lead to the Republicans making up support in certain areas that they've lost. Yeah, it's a tall task for the former president. I think a lot of the polls are also kind of overestimating him a bit, because what we have here is we have pollsters who, in 2016 lost legitimacy in some ways. The media and a lot of polls lost a lot of their legitimacy after, giving Trump such a small chance to win the election, and then lo and behold, oh shit, he goes and wins the damn thing. There's been this overcorrection, I believe, where pollsters are deathly afraid to make that same mistake that they did in 2016, and rightfully so, because it was an embarrassing failure of the polls in 2016. But I think that this has led to an overcorrection to showing MAGA support and showing support for Trump, because they don't want to be embarrassed again. I think that this overcorrection has perhaps led us to believe that this race, might be closer than it ultimately is going to be. Harris, there is a reality where Harris wins in a landslide, and where these different political baggage and indictments and being found liable for sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll, and the Dobbs decision and his mishandling of, derelict of duty, really, on January 6th. Are these things able to be overcome politically by the Republicans, by their laser focus on immigration and painting the Biden administration as a disaster for border security? Is it enough? It's going to be really interesting to see if it is. I don't think so. I think Harris wins the election. I hope it's a landslide, but Donald Trump's unfavorability is a very serious political liability for the GOP. And you think about what could possibly happen from now until election day, a month out, that would seriously change how Americans view Donald Trump. And I don't really see anything that could happen that would change it that dramatically or drastically to where Americans suddenly have a overwhelming favorable view or a much less unfavorable view of the former president. That's all I got for you guys in this one. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with someone who's into politics, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Until then, me and Ali say peace.